My name's Janet Montgomery. I'm an archaeological scientist and I work at Durham University. And what I specialise in is analysing human and animal remains that we excavate from archaeological sites to try and find out some more information about their lives and the climate, the environment, what they ate, where they came from. At the moment, I'm doing more work with the York Archaeological Trust on some of the skeletons that they all hope to feature in their exhibitions. And again, we're looking at things like, was this individual born and raised in York? Were they eating the sort of diet that was prevalent at the time in York? Or are they very different? Have they come from somewhere else where they were experiencing different climate, maybe somewhere much colder, or different diets, to see what the population makeup of York at the time was. So one of the sites we've been looking at is in Coppergate. We've already looked at 3 skeletons from Coppergate that were interesting in various ways. And the question there really was, they date to around the time of the Viking invasions in Britain, and we were interested to know if these were Vikings, if they'd come from Scandinavia, if they'd got on a boat and come over to York, or if they'd been born and raised and were adopting different burial customs, different burial practices that were prevalent in York at the time. Another site that we've been looking at is at St Stephen's in Dixon Lane, and here we had evidence that there may be individuals buried there of possible African ancestry. And so we were hoping to use the techniques that we have at our disposal to try and find out if they had come to York from Africa or whether they'd been born here. So far we have looked at some of the individuals from Coppergate and St Stephen's, and we've been using isotopic techniques to look at possible origins. So these are indicators that tell us about where people were living at the time the teeth that we analysed were forming. And the 3 individuals at Coppergate gave us some very interesting results. The strontium that we look at, which gives us an indication of the type of geology in the region people were living, was not consistent with York, or really most of Yorkshire as a whole. 2 of them were sort of borderline, that we could find those values elsewhere in England. One was very unusual. And also the oxygen isotopes that we looked at from these 3 individuals were very low. And when you get oxygen isotopes that are very low, it tends to indicate that the people were living somewhere much colder, or possibly more northerly, than York and the rest of England, really. So the first indicators were very interesting. So we want to look a bit further into these and try and clarify whether we can, add more certainty to the fact that they're not from England or not from Britain, and also where that place might be. So we're looking at other indicators like lead isotopes, which can be quite indicative at the time. In the sort of Viking period in Britain, we had a very distinctive lead isotope ratio in the indigenous population. So people coming in from elsewhere, for example from Norway, Sweden, have very different values. So that's one thing. The other thing we'd like to look at is we want to use a new technique that we've developed to create dietary life history profiles over many years through childhood, from birth up to 23 years, so we can track diet, also look at whether the person was suffering from any physiological or nutritional stress, i.e. were they starving, were they short of food, were they ill, and we can produce these life history profiles so we can look at whether they were breastfed, when they were weaned, if they had any periods of stress, if they changed their diet radically, because if that happens sometimes, that's an indication that somebody's moved from one place where they had the diet that was normal in that place to somewhere else. And in the Viking period, most people in Britain were not consuming marine foods, marine fish or seals, any sort of marine food. So when they come from Scandinavia, sometimes they were eating these sorts of things there, and so we can track diet and we can get a change from marine food consumption to no marine consumption when they move to Britain, or vice versa. So these things can all help us try and identify where people were living and whether they were indigenous to York or England. So from the research as a whole, we want to try and get more information from these individuals. That the one thing with isotope analysis is that it enables us to actually look at the individuals themselves, not things that are associated with their burial, things they might have been buried with, or identities that they may have adopted in their new place. It actually tells them, because the teeth that they have that we look at, they formed in their place of birth. You carry them around with you wherever you subsequently travel. They're like sort of ancient passports, really. So we can look at the teeth and try and extract. It's a little archive of information about the people, where they were living at the time during their childhood. So it's coming directly from the person. It's something they can't change subsequently. So what we want to do is look at the population makeup of York, how varied it was, whether everybody was born and raised there. So if we have people of possible African ancestry, had they moved to York, or were people living in York at the time and having children? And so it gives us insights into information that we can't actually get any other way from the archaeology and the grave goods and the burial context and the burial rites.